Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In this clip, Bishop Barron is reacting to the infamous conversation between Joe Rogan and Dawkins. Now, this conversation is about the presupposed absurdity of human religiosity and the great energy, effort, and expense that humans put into believing the lie of God and enshrouding God within their cultures. So Rogan basically creates this conversation and this sentiment, and he's basically going to say there's no real proof of God, and Dawkins is going to oblige, and then Dawkins thinks about the extreme costliness of religion, and he talks about how there are certain religions that people literally like whip themselves. So this shows kind of a barbaric nature to humans. Religion makes highly evolved apes barbaric, is how I've written it here. Let's go ahead and watch this clip, and I will react to Bishop Barron's reaction at the end. Check this out.
Well, it almost seems like if you were studying human beings, if you were something that was completely alien to our civilization, our culture, and you were looking at this strange tendency to believe in something that there's no proof of and devote a massive amount of energy into defending that, put it into your songs and put it into, your Pledge of Allegiance and all these, which of course was not until the 1950s, but all the different things that people have done in so many different cultures in regards to religion, it almost seems like a natural aspect of being a human being.
You're right that they put an enormous amount of energy and effort and expense and time and cost in share. I mean, some of the extreme sects which whip themselves with horrible weapons, actually bleed,
Yes.
scar their own backs. It's very, very surprising to a biologist. We would think that they would be more interested in surviving and reproducing, but no, there's something about religion that makes them go to extremes of costliness, and I don't get it, I must say.
So, initial take on that sort of opening statement. This is just from the first few minutes of the interview.
Yeah, here's the first take, Brandon. Go back to the psychologist Carl Jung, who had a kind of interesting relationship with religion. But he said there's been a consensus gentium that God exists. What he meant was a consensus of the peoples over the ages. We are the very, very peculiar group, we moderns and postmoderns, that now in increasing numbers don't believe in God. The absolute consensus of the peoples of the world is that the sacred or the divine or the transcendent or God exists. Now, that in itself doesn't prove that God is real, but I do think it should give people pause. The view that, oh, it's just a silly, irrational delusion caused by ignorance and I mean, just on the face of it, that should strike people as a pretty inadequate explanation. And now it's related to the next point he made, which was this thing for which there is no evidence. Is it likely that now, I mean, across all of human history, as far as we know, the earliest records we have, people are religious, almost 99%. It's again, we are the very peculiar culture. What are the odds that all of those people were simply suffering from a mental illness or a delusion? That there was nothing like, and I'm going to bracket the word, proof or evidence, because it's a very loaded word the way the new atheists tend to use it. That there was nothing like a rational warrant for belief in God. I think, given the consensus gentium, that just seems to be a very unlikely position to hold. There are indeed plenty of rational warrants for belief in God. Now, I'd say most people probably hold them more implicitly. Some philosophers make them very explicit. But you and I know, Brandon, there's probably 20 or more of famous arguments for God's existence. Can we quarrel with all of them, most of them? Yeah, maybe. But show me one area of philosophy that delivers absolutely convincing arguments for the position. I mean, that's just the nature of philosophical reasoning. But can you simply say in this dismissive way, oh, there's no justification, there's no proof whatsoever? I think both the consensus gentium argues strongly against that and the presence of many of these arguments that have been entertained by some of the smartest people in the Western world. So just on the face of it, I'm very uneasy with the first premise really of this argument.
So, firstly, Bishop Barron is not responding to the totality of this clip, but the first major claim of Rogan that religious people have a tendency to believe in something that there is no proof of. Barron confronts this claim head on, and he does so by pointing out the consensus gentium, this idea that all peoples of every nation and every ethnicity and every time, in every era, I should say rather, have believed in the transcendent and sacred. In short, what is truly absurd from an empirical analysis is not that people believe in God, but that some odd ducklings don't. So you have to ask the question, who truly is disillusioned in this clip? The people of the world, all of those that have throughout time, space, and history have believed in God, and the majority of them have, or a few, just a minority of people that quote unquote are more illumined than others, like Dawkins and Rogan. So Barron also appeals to a rational warrant, and I think this is so important because the claim being made is that there's no proof. There's no religious, there's no, I guess we could say, empirical proof. There's no scientific proof that there is a God. But Barron wants to appeal to the fact that there is a rational warrant. And how he does this is he cites that there are bright intellects within the Western culture, and Western society is built upon religious thinking individuals. Science was started in Christian institutions. And since this is the case, it's not necessarily true that it's irrational to be religious. Okay, what I love about the consensus gentium approach and argument, it's one of my most favorite arguments for the existence of God, and it's probably the argument that has had the most effect on me. Why? It requires you to look in the mirror. You have to ask yourself, am I really seeing the world better than all of the other humans during all the other eras, during all the other moments in history? Am I seeing it better? It shows just how stuck up, conceited, and arrogant one has to be an atheist. You have to believe that you are more illumined, that you are the illumined one, and everybody else is living in a delusion. But think about it. If you are the only one or are the minority that holds the position, what is more logical? What makes more rational sense? To believe that you are mistaken or that everybody else is? I'll leave you with that. All right, that's all I have for this video. Remember that Christianity is Christ. Without Christ, there is no Christianity. See you in the next one. Peace.